of Seeing Sentai. I'm Mars Girl. Today we're still looking at Denshi Sentai Denjiman, episodes 29 through 35. I probably don't have too much information to regurgitate, so this might be a short video, but there are a couple of episodes that ended up being very interesting and very entertaining that, of course, I absolutely wanted to lay out there for you guys. Let me start by talking about some monsters, I guess. Let me list some names off. You got names such as Sabimushilar, Chochinlar, Mimilar, Datolar, Saxophone-lar, Bidamalar, and Dokugalar. I think the interesting thing about episode 29 is that the actor who played Battle France from Battle Fever J has now returned to make a cameo appearance in this episode. The unfortunate part is that he's not actually playing Battle Fever J, he's just some other French guy with ESP. He does that ability that maybe you've seen it in some other Japanese media or any other kind of media. I know it shows up, for example, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but the idea of somebody with ESP who can see certain things and then they'll use a Polaroid camera to take a picture of the image or the place that they're getting an ESP image in their head from, so you can have this Polaroid photo. And that's what the Denjiman are using to help solve Vader clan-related crimes. So this French dude, played by the Battle France actor, will give them pictures. One picture showed them a picture of Denjiland, excuse me, I'm using their pronunciation. But there's no reason why he should know where Denjiland is. So they take him to Denjiland and they kind of figure out that he's actually a descendant of Denjiland. It shows more flashback stuff from the movie that happened several weeks prior to the airing of this episode, where it shows Princess Denji coming down to Earth, and then she leaves Denji Dog IC there on Earth. So now, 3,000 years later, here's this guy from France who's apparently some descendant of the people from planet Denji. Really kind of interesting material in that episode. There are a couple of fairly sad episodes within this 7-episode window here. Episode 30 features a monster named Mimilar. Mimi is the word for ear, so his face is like one giant earlobe, which is kind of weird because it really has absolutely nothing to do with the events happening in that episode. But the girl who's cameoing in that episode is a magician. She's playing a magician in the show, and she was a magician in real life. The sad part about it is this episode tells a story of her father getting killed by the Vader clan, and her father is also a magician, and she doesn't want to do magic for a while, but then Denji Blue tells her, yeah, but your dad wanted you to go with him and start a magic caravan and go around from place to place making children happy, so she continues to do magic. What's kind of sad is that apparently in real life, you know, like I said, she really was a magician. The year before this aired, she really did lose her magician father, and then she decided to continue on and continue practicing magic, and it's just it's really heartbreaking when you see her on-screen dad, who by the way is the leader of the Go Rangers, when you see him die and you hear her crying, and it's so real, and part of me is like, ugh, it's kind of cruel to make her go through this, but maybe she just really wanted to do this. Maybe she really wanted to tell this really simplified kind of children's heroic version of this story as to why it is she wants to continue practicing magic. Maybe that's it, but like, dang, it got real dark there. There is a monster by the name of Saxophone-lar, like I said before, and yeah, he's a saxophone, and he plays himself, and he destroys beautiful things like beautiful artifacts inside museums and stuff. This is the only episode amongst these 7 episodes here I'm talking about right now where, again, yellow kind of has the forefront as opposed to any of the others. This is only the second time this has really happened, and his neighbor across the way is practicing his saxophone and he really sucks at it, so the Vader clan then is like, here, take this saxophone and we'll practice with you and you'll become super awesome and we'll get you to perform in New York in about 2 years. And he's like, great, but as he's playing on the saxophone, it's actually the monster Saxophone-lar, and and he's unwittingly destroying really beautiful artifacts and stuff. So they have to stop him. Very standard episode. I just thought it was funny that a monster was a saxophone. Very amusing monster. By far the saddest episode out of all these 7 episodes, and perhaps the saddest one yet, comes out of episode 33 with the monster Beatamalar. You might recognize the word Beatama, perhaps out of the anime and toy franchise Beataman. So Beatama actually means marble, so maybe some of you have heard that word before. So this monster is based on a marble. It features a kid who's actually this monster, Beatamalar, who came down to Earth 11 years ago, before the Vader clan ever showed up. And he came there as a baby, and he came along with a little space marble. And then this woman finds him, and she's like, "Oh, beautiful baby." She takes him home and raises him as her own son. But by the time he reaches this age, he's starting to freak out, and like the monster tendencies are coming out in him, and he's really got this dual personality, and he doesn't know who he is, and he's really torn between being a human and then being a monster for the Vader clan. And so his mom at the end of the episode is like, "No, look, I still have the marble from when you were born, you're my son." And he's starting to be like, "Oh, Mom." But then the Vader clan kind of shoots the marble out of the woman's hand and makes it explode, and now the kid's freaking out again, and he's just completely lost. There's no saving him. So the Denjiman have to kill him, and then there's this really sad kind of funeral service as the sun is setting, and the mom is praying over his gravesite. Oh man, you lost what could have been a really nice, happy child, and he had a wonderful, beautiful childhood, and he had to go and die. That's a really sad episode. My heart was kind of hurting at the end of it, I'm not gonna lie. And then culturally speaking, the last episode I watched, which was episode 35, featured a monster by the name of Dokugalar. That is, Dokuga is a word that means poison moth. You might perhaps kind of recognize the story that's happening here. I don't know how well versed you guys might be in Japanese folklore, but there's this story of Orihime. This story kind of changes depending on who's telling it, but perhaps one of the most common ones is that this, bless you cat, is that there's a man who finds a woman, brings her home, asks her to stay with him, and she says, "Okay, I'll stay with you and I'll help like sew clothes and weave clothes or whatever, just so long as you promise not to walk in on me while I'm doing that, ever, don't open the door." And he's like, "Okay," except one day his curiosity got the best of him, and he opens the door and it turns out it was a beautiful crane, and the crane is like, "Well, now you know my secret, and I have to leave. Bye." And now he's left all alone and lonely. So that's the story of Orihime, and there's kind of a story like that happening here in this episode. It's not exact, but it's highly possible that that's the direction they're going for, as there is a beautiful woman who shows up at this man's house and starts weaving clothes for him that he wants to sell, but the clothes are Vader clan clothes, because this is a moth, this is a poisonous moth, and it's spitting its poison out onto the cloth, and then suddenly the clothes start flying around and attacking people and exploding, and people are going, "Oh, my shirt is attacking me!" It's kind of the dumbest thing, but eventually the man figures it out and he realizes, "Oh no, the woman who's staying in my house and sewing my clothes isn't so great," and then they have to kill her, and he's like, "Oh, that sucks. Oh well. Thanks, guys. Bye." So there were some interesting episodes. I mean, the series really is kind of not actually going anywhere, but there are fun things happening. So it's not like I'm sad or upset or distraught that I'm having to sit through this. It's really not a chore. It's just, if you're looking for an overarching story, I guess maybe don't come to Denjiman, because it doesn't exactly have one. Thanks as always for giving this a watch, and thank you as always to the Patreon contributors over at patreon.com/MarsGirl who make this show and many other shows just like this happen. If you would like, go ahead and visit patreon.com/MarsGirl, see what other cool things you can get by becoming a Patreon subscriber, including getting your own request review. And please, as always, check out marsgirl.tumblr.com, where I'm doing write-ups on each and every one of these episodes. So thank you very much, everybody. I'll be seeing you guys next time.